Okay, good evening. First of all, as I mentioned in the message in WhatsApp, we're going to stop a few minutes early as far as the actual class, by 7:30, 7:35, and you're all invited to remain online. I have a couple other family members who will be joining us. Make a brief seal, brief, just literally 5 minutes without Kaddish on Masechet Megillah in Yerushalmi, which is which will be in memory of my sister-in-law who's today, but this morning the Shloshim concluded. So I had been saying, I think some of you know, I've been saying Kaddish for a man for a year, a little less than a year, obviously. And then during that same time period, I was finishing, I started for my sister-in-law. So today's the first day I haven't said Kaddish this evening in almost a year, which is very strange. And it should be Bezrat Hashem a very long time until I have to say Kaddish again for anything more than just a yard site. So tonight the class is Le'il Mishmat Bat Yachaya Bat Leib Halevi Sarah Bracha, and we're going to get started. We are in the middle of chapter 14, and the items that we touched on last week are it's starting to answer a couple more questions that we asked in the very beginning of the book. We understand now why it is that Eov said, Barata Tzadikim, Barata Rishayim, you created Tzadikim, you created Rishayim, which seems to go against our basic belief in the idea of the Chirach of Shit, or free choice. We noted that it does not mean that he created the people who are tzaddikim. He didn't say, okay, you're going to be a tzaddik, you're going to be a rasha, but rather gave the neshamot. Certain people got a special neshama of a tzaddik, and therefore they will be able, if they do their job right, there's no guarantee still, that they will become a tzaddik. And we also understand a little bit about the idea of when they were told, Tehi tzaddik va'al tehi rasha, the shvuah they were told to take before they come into this world, this double expression of why they're saying, just why not say Tehi tzaddik? It's enough, because if you're going to be a tzaddik, or at least strive for that, you're not going to be a rasha. So the idea being, again, that you should have a she'ifa, you should have a pull, a draw, a desire to strive for tzaddik. But even though you can't reach that level, because most people can't, because they're not, the tzaddik neshama is not given to everybody. Nevertheless, don't be a rasha. And we also started, when we talked about this last week, we said that there was a method he had given us in order to overcome some obstacles when it came to machshava, dibur, ma'aseh, thought, speech, and action. We said that when something comes into our head, or we want to do something, we say, okay, we're going to stop ourselves by saying, I don't want to be separated from Hashem. We also noted that that doesn't work when it comes to dvarim ha'mesurim lalev, meaning feelings. The idea of the actual love of Hashem and the feelings that we have, that concept doesn't really fit in that model doesn't fit. So where we're holding right now is a big question that should really, maybe some of you have thought about, and that is the following. Where we ended off last week, we said also that when it says that he's mashbia, that they have to take a shvuah, we also said the Admor HaZaken said that it's an idea all of masbia. But he's also he's filling up, so to speak, the neshama with capabilities. The capabilities of being this tzaddik. It's not just saying, okay, you go out there and be the best you can be. Now, I have mentioned, one day I should have kept track, literally, in writing over all my years of life. And I don't mean this in this exaggeration, the tens of thousands of times that I've talked about something, learned something, heard something, and then it comes up in another way that same day. Until we learned, when I originally learned the book, and then until we learned last night, I didn't ever really dealt this whole idea of the shvuah and masbia, the concept of the oath, and the same letter shin bet ayin. Sin bet ayin could mean to fill up like that. The Gemara I did today, the Shulchan Aruch Yomi I was doing today was the deals with shavuot, and there's this concept of a person who wants to sometimes make himself look like he has money. So they call himself lehasbia, to fill himself up, to make him look like he has money. And that's why he's just like, yeah, I have money. I don't need to borrow your money, whatever it might be. So that same thing came out in the Shulchan Aruch Dafka today, which is pretty cool. So where you ended off with was that this double double shavua, this double-edged oath, there seems to still be an issue here. And what would that issue be? If Hashem knows, and I wrote this down. I'm not going to read exactly what I wrote, but I need to look at it because I don't want to misstate the question. If Hashem knows the potential of every neshama, not if, because Hashem knows the potential of every neshama, why not be mashbiya, give an oath to the tzaddikim's neshamot? Okay, here's the 0.0001 neshamot. They're going to be tzaddikim. I'm going to make you take a shvuah that you're going to be a tzaddik, tehi tzaddik, and all the others have them take an oath, al tehi rasha. Don't be a rasha, because after all, they don't have the ability to become a tzaddik. So how can you really tell them to become a tzaddik? Okay, so we use the concept of masbiya. You're filling up this gas tank, so to speak, that he potentially could maybe get to the bottom level of a tzaddik. So at this point, this question causes there to be a bit of a shift in gears in Tanya. Until now, we were saying that the Benoni can control his machashava, dibur maaseh, his thought, speech, and action, but only a tzaddik can control the heart, the feelings. Remember, if you look, you don't have to turn back. Just trust me if you don't want to look back. The beginning of the chapter, now the middle of the chapter, where it says, when it comes to the things that are given to the heart, meaning feelings, we don't have that same capability of saying, okay, I don't want to be separate from Hashem, I'm going to rule over that. That's in the purview of the tzaddik. We've said that until now. So I might think that a Benoni should just ignore the heart altogether. If I can't rule over it, if I can't trick it, so to speak, it's not really the right word, but you know what I'm saying, then why even should I deal with it? So therefore, they tell the neshama to try to be a tzaddik, have a she'ifa. I don't remember the word in English for that. Not a pull. Strive. You should strive for being a tzaddik. You may not get there, but you at least need to try. And that changes the focus that we're going to have on the last few lines of this chapter and the next chapter after that, maybe even next two chapters. We're going to say, I'm going to take a look at my notes here. We're going to say that it's to the Benoni. Remember, he's talking to the Benonim, this book, that just focusing on machashava, dibur and maaseh, it's not enough. Because you also need to work on your avodat Hashem. And what is avodat Hashem? It's not just doing the mitzvah. We've seen this over and over. Avodat Hashem, a service of Hashem, does not mean taking the lulav and etrog, listening, saying a bracha. That is a part of avodat Hashem. But what does it mean? It's the lev. It's the heart. So what he does here, but much more so later on, is he uses a concept from Hilchot Shabbat in the idea of avodah. There's an isur on Shabbat what's called me'abed. Me'abed means tanning. You take a hide of an animal, you stretch it, you scrape off the hairs, and you make it harder. Now it's called tanning the hide. That's not what I'm talking about. Like when some people were bad as a child in the South, the United States, they tan their hide. Okay, and I'm talking about that. That's a nice expression. So he talks about taking something that's rough and make something useful out of it. So he talks about the idea of avodat Hashem is like tanning ourselves, me'abed ourselves. So the avodat Hashem, he's taking the same ayin bet dalid of avodah, of serving Hashem, turning it inwards and saying we have to work on ourselves in every single way. We have to take that which maybe we can't seem to get to as easily, but really start to work on it. And now let's take a look what he says on this. Let's take a look. Okay. But what's this but? We just said that when it comes to things that are given over to the heart, okay, that's really the purview of the tzaddik. But he says as follows: Afal pichein, even though that is the case, that the tzaddik is the one who really can rule over his heart, and the tzaddik is the one who can, so to speak, say, I don't want to be separated from God, even in my feelings and it's much harder for a Benoni to do that. צריך לקבוע לו עיתים גם כן להשית עצות בנפשו להיות מואס ברע. The Benoni has a requirement, has a where's not requirement, has a must, I guess, whatever, to set aside time to meditate, to take time and think, to actually think, to come up with ideas in order to cause him to at least on some level be disgusted by Ra. This is where we left off last week. We said that what does it mean that the tzaddik is able to rule over his heart? It means that just like you and I might say, ugh, chazer, pig, ichs, horrible. I could never even think like avodah zarah. What are you kidding me? Disgusting. But for most things, we may not want to, we wouldn't do it, but we're not at the point where we're disgusted by it, right? I wouldn't, maybe not a good example because that is disgusting. Just a minute. Can you hear me talking? Just shake your head. You cannot. Okay, 1 minute. Hold on. Any better? Yes. Okay, that was weird. It's never happened to me. Okay, anyways. So I was saying that when it comes to the tzaddik, he is able, or she is able to be disgusted by all ra, by anything quote unquote evil, any avera, anything that shouldn't be doing, anything that's wrong, anything that is not kedusha. But we as Beinonim, we don't have that ability to be completely disgusted by ra 100%. We have a little bit of that. And what is it we're supposed to start doing when he talks about this idea that we have to come up with ideas in order to be mo'es bera, to be disgusted by or grossed out by ra? We have to do things. Kigon. There is an eitzah. By the way, this eitzah is not just relegated to the world of Jews, but it is something that is used in other areas. I'll explain in a minute. Chachamim say when it comes to a man being taken by a woman, he's like enthralled. She's gorgeous. She's beautiful, whatever it might be. To say to himself, Isha chemet mile'ah so'ah, that the woman is just filled with gross stuff. What does that mean? Okay, what does that mean? So, whereas the woman the person is looking at might be, as they say, drop dead gorgeous and beautiful. That woman, or for the woman, that man, is not always going to look like that. You know, in 80 years from now, 70 years from now, that person will not look the same. And I'll prove it to you. Just go online and look at some of the people you were when you were a teenager and look and say like, oh my God, they were so gorgeous. And look at their pictures now. They're going to be a little different. There is only one exception to that rule, and that is my wife. Okay, besides her, which never will change because she looks exactly the same to me as the day we got married. I got to get these glasses checked. Just joking. This idea of a mind game. Now, let's go a little bit further with that. It says, in similar fashion, similar things. Everyone has, I'll give you a more common example. I don't know how you deal with if you've ever tried to lose weight. Everyone has their own shtick. So once I have generally speaking, once I have set my mind to do something, and especially when it comes to losing weight, which I just have to pick the day to start again, I have a method. To me, something that I shouldn't eat is treif. It's not that I shouldn't eat it. It's I'm not allowed to eat it. Or it's chalavi and I'm bisari. It's a mind game, but most of the time it works like it's treif. What do you mean you want me to have that? Of course I can't have it. It's not kosher. In my mind, I would never say that to somebody from your house. I say, what am I going to eat that? So if I ever, God forbid, say that to you, you'll understand why I said that. So it's a way of my saying I can't have that. So it's a similar idea. It says, look at the next few words here. V'chein, and similarly, kol mine, kol, wait. Yeah. It's interesting. I have a few different words here in my book. Huh. I got no. Oh no, I skipped. No, because I turned the page too fast. Okay. Anything else you can come up with? You would say like it's just gross. Put it into your head. It's something you can't have. There's a famous mashal that's given in Midrash and in many places of a man who falls in love with a woman. He's married and obviously can't have her. So he's supposed to see himself as the peasant, and she's the princess, the daughter of the king. And just like he could never, ever in a million years think about having that princess because he's in a different station than her at a different point of life, so too is that woman as well. Again, these are things we can do to convince ourselves that what we want is not good, is wrong. Not only is it not good, it's wrong. And in this case, we're talking it's ra. V'chein, kol tanugei olam hazeh. Any other pleasure of this world. Someone who's smart will see the result that could come of it. Let's assume for a moment. Let's talk about. I don't want to go with food. Let's go with man and woman. Okay, guy's married, and he has a coworker. She's pretty, and he's infatuated with her. Now, he has a few options. He can try to find a different department to work in. He can, say something to himself. He could do something. There's a whole bunch of things he could do. He could quit if the situation's very bad. But he could also tell himself, what happens if I act on my impulses? What's going to be the result? Let's see. Potentially, likely, failed marriage, a bad reputation, kids are going to maybe hate me, whatever else it might be. So when you get that into your head, and you see, because this quote here, it's indirect quote. Is a quote indirectly from Pirkei Avot. Who is considered wise? One who sees that which is born. It doesn't mean about a baby being born, but it means that you can see long-term what the potential results and potentially the disastrous results could be of some action. What is it? That eventually that which you want is going to rot, and will be just worms and garbage. So let's take it with food now, right? So let's say you have this unbelievable, I don't know what your favorite pie is, but let's just say, Stam, it's a lemon meringue pie. I don't know, just pull that one out there. So you have a lemon meringue pie. It is the most beautiful piece of pie you've ever seen in your life. You want it. You've been so good on your diet, you deserve it. You say, you know what? If I had that lemon meringue piece of pie, it's going to start with that, and it's going to be the brownies, and it's going to be the chocolate, then I'm going to be back where I started 6 weeks ago, and I've been so good. So when you see that lemon meringue pie, and all you see now is picture what it would look like leaving it on the counter for a week. Trust me, you're not going to want it, right? So if you're able to see that, right? And what's he telling us these things for? That you are using this to say when these feelings of in general about when it comes to chet, when it comes to averot, when it comes to sin, and you're able to see that averah, that chet, as it's disgusting, it's putrid, and if I do this is the bad thing that could come out of it. It helps you to get to a point where you will be repulsed by that chet. Now, a tzaddik in the neshama has this capability all the time. Potential. Majority of people, Beinonim, don't have the ability to do it all the time. But in fact, we do have the ability to do it some of the time. So let's continue the next couple lines. We're going to look at some things from Rav Steinsaltz shortly. He says, V'ha'hefech. And then when it comes to the opposite, you have to take the time to also contemplate the opposite. Take the time to enjoy and to have simcha of the fact that you have a relationship by thinking about Hashem kafi yecholto, as best as you can. Here's the key. Af shiodea benafsho. even though you know yourself 100%. You're not, I'm saying to myself, you're not going to be the tzaddik. You're not going to be the one who's completely repulsed by chet. You're not going to be the one who's enraptured with love of God 24/7. You're not going to be that person. But only in the imagination. Nevertheless, you, him meaning you and me, have to do your part. To keep your promise. You do your part to have the she'ifa, the drive, the pull towards becoming a tzaddik. And then, listen to this, Hashem yaseh tov beinav. Hashem will do that which he sees good in his eyes. What does this mean? This is a tremendous boon for Beinonim. If we have a she'ifa, if we have a pull, we want to strive for as best as we can be, even though we know we're not going to get there. We know it, okay? There's no one who can tell you, unless they're the truest of tzaddikim, and then they'll be so ananad, they wouldn't even admit to it. There's no one who's a Benoni who's going to tell you, I absolutely could become a tzaddik if I tried my hardest, in spite of the fact that the Rambam says that anyone can be like Moshe Rabbeinu. No, the problem. I'm playing with this, and these are the earphones that automatically go on because I have Bluetooth on. Now let me turn Bluetooth off so I don't mess that up. Oh, I figured it out. Let's see. It's all up here in the kidneys. Okay. I know they're not up there. So what does it have? What is he telling us? Number one, don't say, I'm just a Benoni. I can't even bother trying. Number two, you have to try. Why? Because you took a shavua, in quotes. Number three, you're not going to get there to the top. But it doesn't mean you can't try. It doesn't mean you shouldn't try. And not only that, you try, and Hashem will help you grow. Hashem yaseh atov beinav. It's not just God's going to sit back and go, hey, good job, Zeddy. Love it. Great. Have a good day. Catch you later. No, he's going to say, look what my kid is doing. Right? I'm going to give you a mashal that I heard many, many years ago. I've used in many classes, but I don't think I've ever used it in this class. And that has to do with teaching a baby to walk. A child. Babies don't walk, I guess. And what happens? When the baby is at 9 months, 10 months, 11 months, around there, obviously there's different stages, different ages for the stage. You start to see they pull themselves up and they start walking around the edge of the couch, and it's all exciting. Now you think maybe they want to try and take a step. So what do? You put your two fingers out like this, and you hold them for dear life, and you say, okay, come on, and go one step. Well, you got the cameras going, you got the news team coming in, you got the drones flying overhead to just video that one step. Oh, it's awesome. What a great accomplishment. They take another step and they fall flat on the face and they're crying. Okay, that's normal. That's day number one. Day number three, you have their feet by the finger and they take 2, 3, 4 little steps. Oh, this is so cool. Day number 6, you put your hands out to them and they're standing up and they're wobbling, right? They're wobbling and they take 1, 2, they fall down. What's the difference? You've stepped back a little bit. And what are they doing? They're walking towards you. Wobbling, but you're helping them. How are you helping them? They see the goal. They see what they're looking for. They're seeing their mommy. They're seeing their abba, whatever it might be. After a period of time, the parent steps further and further away. The child doesn't. The child starts moving more and more towards the parent. The parent is moving further and further away. The child starts going closer and closer because they have a she'ifa. They want to get to the parent. They may not get there because they may fall down again, but they're learning how to grow. And the parent is doing their job. What? They're not just standing there, hopefully not like, so yeah, my kid's walking, yeah, fine, big deal. No, they're for this monumental thing, right? They're involved, they're engrossed, and they're trying to give the encouragement. It's the same thing over here, kiviyachol. What's happening over here? When you do your part, you do the hitbonenut, and you think about what it is you really are supposed to be doing. And you think about what it is you're not supposed to be doing. And when it comes to things you're not supposed to be doing, you try to conjure up something in your head to counteract it, make it even a little bit, loathe that action, that thought, whatever it might be, that feeling. And then on the other hand, you start to think of what Hashem means to you and what you want to have involved with Hashem and in that relationship. And when you do that and you realize that, okay, I'm going to do my best, then you're living up to your shvuah of mashbi'in oto v'tzadik. You're not going to be one. Try your best, and then Hashem yaseh tov beinav. Hashem's going to do what's good in his eyes. And in Hashem's eyes, everything's good. But he's going to give you that extra boost. Now, I'm going to mention something. It is going to come up in the next few lines, but I need to give you a little background first. And that'll help us understand this idea even greater. And I've mentioned this, I don't think in Tanya. Okay. But we have to you have to suspend your belief system for a minute if you are not someone who accepts this idea. We know that we are made up of both a neshama and a guf. We have a physical body and we have a spiritual body, or spirit. And that spirit is called the neshama. Most people picture it as one for one, meaning you have a body, physical body, and your body is inhabited, for lack of a better word, with a neshama. That is a very basic belief, but it is not necessarily accurate. Our neshama is made up of multiple parts. This isn't me saying this. This is the Arizal in Shar HaGilgulim and all kinds of interesting things, which is the concept of what's called that we have, let's say, our neshama, but we also have what's called a Gilgul. What's a Gilgul? It is not the same thing, God forbid, as reincarnation that the non-Jews believe in. What is a Gilgul Neshama? Gilgul Neshama is that a person lived in this world. They had a certain tafkid, certain job to do. Some people will accomplish their tafkid in this world, and some people will not accomplish it. How do you know what your tafkid is? That's a different topic. But when the neshama doesn't fulfill its tafkid, and now your multiple-parted neshama goes to shamayim, part of that neshama has to come back into this world in order to fulfill its job. And it goes into another person. And sometimes the things that we struggle with the most in this world are exactly those things that the neshama is saying, I need a tikkun. I need to fix, I need to repair what happened in my previous, using incarnation in a very loose term right now. Now, on top of that, and that's a person is born with these multiple parts of neshamot. On top of that, in order to understand the next part of Tanya, the next few lines, there's another item you have to understand. And that's something called, by the way, for those of you who are coming on right now within the family, just give me a couple more minutes, please. That's the item that's called an ibur nishama. What's an ibur nishama? What's ibur? It's a concept of being pregnant. Like we talk about a shnat ibur, a pregnant year, right? So like last year was I think it was last year, had 2 adars. When a person is born, they have their neshama and the multiple parts of their neshama, whatever it might be, and that's what they are born with. Sometimes you need a boost in this world. You need help. You're going through a rough patch. Something's just not working, and you're trying, and all of a sudden, it's like the floodgates open, and you get through it. It's almost like someone grabbed you by the hand, said, okay, we're going to do this together. You're going to get through this, and you make it through. That's called an ibur neshama. It's the neshama, part of the neshama of a tzaddik that comes to you while you are alive. I know this sounds weird. It shouldn't sound any weirder than the idea of getting a neshama yitera, an extra neshama for Shabbat, right? So it comes to you on a temporary basis. And we're going to see what that really means next week when we get into it. But this ibur neshama comes to the person, helps them through this rough period, and then leaves. And that's going to be, he's going to talk about the idea that even though we cannot be the tzaddik, again, based on the way the Tanya talks about a tzaddik, we may never reach that level, but the neshama of a tzaddik can be there to help us. And we work together on something. And meaning temporarily that tzaddik is there, and we become that, even temporarily at that level. And that's also this, who Hashem yaseh hatov be'einav, that Hashem will do that which is good in his eyes. Okay, so let's recap. I'm not going to look at any other slides tonight. Rosh Stein's out. We'll see him in a couple minutes. What are we going to say? So, on the one hand, we said that, look, when it comes to machashava, dibur ma'aseh, thought, speech, and action, that even a Benoni has the absolute ability to say to him or herself, I don't want to separate myself from Hashem, so I don't want that thought. I don't want that speech. I don't want that action. Boom, it shuts it down. When it comes to the heart, when it comes to the feelings, the Benoni doesn't necessarily have that ability. We're talking about what feelings need to be ma'us from ra, to loathe that which is evil, that which is ra. However, that doesn't exempt you from trying. But it doesn't mean you just one day say, okay, I'm going to try today. It means the concept of hitbonenu, spending some time thinking about it, meditating about it, concerning it. Pick something and say, I'm going to really try my best on this. And that's the negative. That's the sur meira. That's the go away from evil. What's the aseh tov? Realize why we're here. Hashem chose this time period. This is the Rebbe, no, it'll come to me in a second, said that the time when you were born, that's when Hashem decided that the world needed you, right? I could have lived in the 12th century. Maybe I did. I don't know. I could have lived in the 12th century. Maybe I could have done stuff in the 3rd century. I have no idea. But right now is when Hashem said, I need to be in this world. And therefore, when I can consider that Hashem chose you and me and all the 7 billion plus people on earth right now to be here, 8 billion now, to be here, we all have this tafkid. And that's the idea of the hitbonut b'gdulat ein sof baruch Hu. The idea of contemplating the grandiosity of Hashem and all that he does for us, and how if we just take one step, he meets us more than halfway. He comes all the way to us. Just like the example I gave you of the baby starting to walk. The parent moves back, moves back, moves back. The baby starts moving closer and closer, and they go, hey, it's great, and get out the video camera. Okay, what we're gonna do, I'm gonna shift gears here. We'll close the book. And I'm going to put on the screen a PowerPoint for a couple minutes. And like I say, if you're in the class and you want to leave, you're welcome to. You're welcome to stay. I'd be more than happy to have everybody here, including the family members that have now joined. When I'm finished with the siyum, what I'll do is I'll probably open up the audio back open for the family to discuss, and you can go on your merry way at that point. Okay, so let me pull this up on the screen now. Sure. Okay, this is my sister-in-law, Barbara. And tonight, as I said at the beginning of the class, we're also going to learn for a couple of minutes here, Le'ilu Nishmat Bat Yechaya Bat Leba Levi Sarah Bracha, Zichrono Livracha. Making a siyum, as I mentioned also before, make a siyum in Masechet Megillah and Talmud Yerushalmi. I'm pointing out the Talmud Yerushalmi because for those of you who are familiar with Bavli, you'll know that the Masechet Megillah ends on a very different note. In Bavli, it talks about that 30 days prior to a Chag, you have to start learning the halachot. This is nothing about it at all. So the way that let me make this bigger, the way that the Yerushalmi finishes, actually, there's a large section that deals with the Masechet Megillah, obviously about Purim, obviously about the Megillah itself, and then it talks about the klaf. The klaf is the material upon which the Megillah is written, the Sefer Torah is written, the Tefillin are written, and it talks about the Sefer Torah, it talks about Tefillin, but it doesn't talk about mezuzah. So in order to round out the topic, it ends off on the topic of mezuzah, and it also teaches us some halachot that you may or may not be familiar with. Let's take a look. Now you notice I put also some dots, like ellipses, because I'm not doing every single line in the Gemara. Hadar b'chutz la'aretz v'hadar b'pundeki Eretz Yisrael 30 yom eino tzarich liten mezuzah. A person who lives outside of Israel and is living in a place they have, and a person who lives in Israel in an inn has 30 days to put up a mezuzah. If they're staying longer than 30 days, then they have to put up a mezuzah. Adar beburganin shloshim yom tzarich litein mezuzah. Without going to burganin, basically is a temporary hut. But if you stay there more than 30 days, you also have to put up a mezuzah. Hasocher bait Yisrael. Now, let me just tell you, just as the halacha, that the way it comes out is that a person who lives in Israel, whether you're renting or buying, you only have 1 day to put up a mezuzah. In Chutz La'aretz, you have 30 days to put it up if you're renting, and 1 day if you're buying. Now, it then tells us, Hasocher bait Yisrael. Person, I'm over here right now, right there. Hasocher bait Yisrael. Someone who rents a house from a Jew. Sarech litein mezuzah. You have to put a mezuzah. It's the renter's job, it's the renter's responsibility to put the mezuzah, not the one who owns the property. Hasocher bait, because the mezuzah is called chovat hadar. It's a requirement of someone who's living there. Hasocher bait migoy. If you rent a house, an apartment from an non-Jew, let's say you live in Cincinnati, and you rent an apartment from Joe Schmo, and he's not Jewish, you still have to put a mezuzah because it's you're living there, therefore you have responsibility for the mezuzah. When you leave that apartment that was owned by a non-Jew, then you have to take the mezuzah with you. But if the apartment is owned by a Jew, Israel, Chutz La'aretz makes no difference. You're not allowed to remove the mezuzot. Now, just parenthetically, that means that if you're renting and you put mezuzot up, the mezuzah technically is not the case. It's actually what's inside of it. In theory, if the person, let's say you own a house and you sold your house and you have mezuzot on the doorposts, so you have to leave them, but you have the person buying the house has to pay you for the cloth, for the parchment inside. You can take a $1 plastic case and put it there, but the parchment has to stay, and they have to pay you for it. If they say no, we don't want them, then you have the right to take them, and then they put their own up. Rabbi Yaakov Baracha b'shem Rabbi Yoshia. Yaakov Baracha said in the name of Rabbi Yoshia, Miknei Maaseh She'ira. The reason had to do with the story, and the Gemara gets into a story. I'm not going to get into that. Adar bepundaki Chutz La'aretz. Who's the person who lives in an inn in Chutz La'aretz, Shloshim Yom for 30 days. Until then, he doesn't have to put a mezuzah. Natan lo yitol, but he put it up, he doesn't take it down. Yaakov Baracha b'shem Rabbi Yoshia Miknei Maaseh She'ira. He also says there's a long story as to what the reason is. It causes all kinds of bad mojo to take the mezuzah down. That's the official word. Anyways, tefillah. Now the Gemara ends up with a question. Let's say you have enough money to buy either a mezuzah for your house. Now, just as an aside, couple halachot. When you put up a mezuzah, you only make a bracha when there's a door. If it's a doorway but no door, there's no bracha. You definitely have to have it on your front door that first day or within 30 days. The other doors should be put up as soon as possible. The front door, let's say you're just moving in, you have no time, at least get it up on the front door. Now, what happens if you have X amount of money and you only can afford to buy? Tefillah does not mean davening here. It means one. When you say tefillin, that's plural because there's the shel rosh and there's a shel yad. So that's plural is tefillin. One is called a tefillah. So you have enough money to pay for one tefillin or a mezuzah. Mi kodem. Which one do you spend the money on? Shmuel Amasho, happens only about 500 million times in the Gemara. There's a dispute. Shmuel Amar mezuzah kodem. Shmuel said that there is. You have a question, Alan? No. Okay. Shmuel said mezuzah kodem. That if you have a choice, you have X amount of money, and you can only spend it on one of the two. He says you go out and buy a mezuzah and just borrow tefillin from somebody. It doesn't mean you don't put on tefillin, but it means you just don't have to spend the money on it. It's more important to put the mezuzah up in your home. Rav Huna said tefillah kodem, that the tefillin come first. So now it's not like there's a dartboard in the Beit Midrash say, okay, I choose that. They have to have a logical reason why they each choose that mitzvah. The answer is like this. My time at Shmuel. What is Shmuel's logic that the mezuzah comes before the tefillin? I'll tell you why, he says. Mezuzah you have to have, whether it's a Shabbat, it's a Tuesday, it's a Chag, it doesn't make a difference. You always have to mezuzah on your door. Tefillin, you don't use except on a weekday. You don't put them on Shabbat. You don't put them on a Chag. Now, what about Rav Huna? My time at Rav Huna. Why does Rav Huna say that the tefillin come first? He says, I'll tell you why. Because what happens if you don't own a house? You live in the desert. in a tent, or you're on a boat. You don't need a mezuzah there, right? But you still need tefillin, so therefore tefillin should come first. So now we have a classic dispute, and each one has what seems to be a good reason. Yeah? So here you have we have a Mishnah that can seem to support Shmuel's opinion that what? That the mezuzah comes first. It says as follows: Tfilah shebala. What happens if you have a pair of tefillin that got worn out? Osinota mezuzah, that you can actually take what's inside and make it into a mezuzah. Well, it doesn't really work, but whatever. Just it's a theoretical question. Mezuzah shebala. But if you have a mezuzah that was worn out, you can't then turn that, the parchment, and then use it for tefillin. Lama? Why? Because we go up a level in kedusha, holiness, but we don't go down, we don't go backwards. So it would seem that, I didn't look at see what halacha is in this case, because generally speaking, there's really not an issue like this that comes up, but should it ever come up, I would look it up, that it would seem that the mezuzah would come first before the tefillin. Now, when you finish a Masechta, when you finish a Gemara, you say a certain formula that is to basically say, I'm going to come back to you, and that the zechuyot, or the merits of learning that Gemara, should stand for me and my children and my children's children. So I'll read that. This also means I hopefully won't forget what I learned. Bad chance. This is actually written in Aramaic, and you say it 3 times. The rest is in Hebrew. We ask Hashem that Torah should be our, not our job, but we should be involved in Torah in this world and should be still with us in the next world. And we now name 10 children of a man named of Papa. That he had 10 sons who all became Torah scholars, and it became axiomatic to mention their names as a zechut, as a merit for everybody to try to strive to do this. Chanina bar Papa, Rami bar Papa, Nachman bar Papa, Achai bar Papa, Ababari bar Papa, Rafim bar Papa, Rachish bar Papa, Surcha bar Papa, Ada bar Papa, Dara bar Papa. Must have been fun at picnics when he had to get all the hot dogs out for all of them. We're now also saying to Hashem, we're davening and praying that the words of Torah should be sweet in our mouths, and Am Yisrael, and for our children, our grandchildren, and further generations, that we should all know Hashem and His Torah. Now we thank Hashem that we have options that others don't. I'll read and explain. We thank you, Hashem. You gave us the option, the opportunity, the ability to sit in a Beit Midrash. Doesn't necessarily mean learning in a Beit Midrash, but to learn Torah. And you didn't make us among those people who just sit wasting time off in a corner somewhere. I do plenty of that too. We get up in the morning and they get up in the morning. We get up to live a life of Torah and to be involved in Torah. They get up for wasting time. We work and they work. We work and we receive a reward. We work, they work and don't get a reward. We are running and we are running. We're running towards the Olam Haba, meaning a world of tranquility and peace and perfection with God. This is the final prayer. Just as you, Hashem, helped me finish this Masechta Megillah, you should help me, please, to finish other Gemaras, other books, and to conclude them, the modula made to learn and to teach, to keep the mitzvot and to do them. And the merit of all those rabbis mentioned in the Gemara, the Mishnah that we learned, Yamod li ulazari, should stand for me and for my children. Should never leave from me and my children forever. And you should keep the word with me. I would mention one last thing. You'll notice, and I know I said this recently in a different class, that this formula ends with the concept of shalom, peace. And the truth is that absolutely every time we mention peace in almost every type of prayer we have, it's the last thing. Kaddish, Kedusha, Birkat Hamazon, benching, the end of Masechta, everything. Birkat Kohanim, the bracha, that the blessing that the Kohanim give. The reason being is that you can have all the wonderful things that Hashem has given us in this world. But if you don't have shalom, if you don't have peace, it's never complete. And we can prove it because the word shalom, the shoresh, the root is shin lamet mem, which is shalem, whole, complete. Because without shalom, you're not complete. Whether it's internal peace, external peace, and that's part of, for those of you who are learning Tanya with me right now, that's also part of the message of Tanya. You want to strive for inner peace. We talked tonight about hitbonenu, the idea of introspection and thinking and taking the time. It doesn't matter where a person is in their life of their Judaism. It makes no difference. Of course, we always want to be growing. But wherever that level of growth is, we can see this based on the end of last week's parasha. The end that I'll finish after this. At the end of last week's parasha, we see that in order to get up to the mizbeach, to the altar, they built a ramp for the Kohanim to go up. So wouldn't it have been easier to make stairs? It's easier to go upstairs than it is a ramp. So that's actually the answer. What was the purpose of the mizbeach, or the altar? It was to bring korbanot, to bring sacrifices. And the word korban means lehit karev. They were brought sacrifices to get closer to God, which means in their level of kedusha and their holiness and their strive to be closer to God. Well, on the stairs, when you walk up, you can stand still, no problem. It's easy. When it comes to a ramp, it's much more difficult. You're either going up or you're going backwards. You're sliding backwards. It's harder to go up and it's easy to slide backwards. It's the message. You're always in motion, one way or another. When it comes to trying to get closer to Hashem, tries to strive one way or the other, it's something, it's an issue of motion. It's not a matter of ever standing still and plateauing. Okay, so for those of you who are in the Tanya class, thank you. For those who stayed, I really appreciate you having been here for the Siyum. I'm going to take a little segue now for a little bit with the family. Wish you all a wonderful evening. Thank you very much. Thank you. Appreciate that. Let me take this. Amen.